My wife believed she had proof of my betrayal and celebrated too soon. The hotel receipts were for her anniversary, and her panic told me a story I didn't want to hear. I, 34 male, am a forensic accountant. My entire professional existence is dedicated to the fact that while people are messy, emotional, and prone to lying, numbers are cold, hard, and absolute. I've spent my career unraveling corporate fraud and finding hidden offshore accounts, but I never expected my biggest case would be my own marriage. My wife, 32 female, and I were together for 8 years. For the first 5, I thought we were the it couple. But when she quit her teaching job to become a lifestyle influencer, the woman I married disappeared. She traded her kindness for engagement metrics and her integrity for a fake-it-till-you-make-it mentality. She started hanging out with a higher-spending crowd, specifically a group of legal consultants and marketing gurus. She began looking at my steady, high-earning career as boring. I was just the ATM that funded the aesthetic for her grid. The tension in our house became a living thing about 6 months ago. She became obsessed with the idea of community property. She'd ask leading questions about the house, a property I bought entirely with my own inheritance and savings 2 years before we even met. In our state, premarital property is usually safe, but if you use marital funds to pay the mortgage or do renovations, the line gets blurry. She knew that. Then came the networking events. She'd be gone until 3 a.m., smelling like expensive gin and a cologne I don't wear. When I tried to talk to her about it, she'd gaslight me, telling me I was insecure and controlling. She started locking her phone, changing her passwords, and even taking calls in the garage. But she wasn't as smart as she thought she was. The escalation hit a breaking point 2 weeks ago. I was looking for my passport in my laptop bag when I found it, a printed confirmation for the Grand Plaza Resort. It was a 3-night stay in a luxury honeymoon suite, booked for the upcoming weekend. My heart skipped a beat. Our 10th anniversary was a month away. I thought, for one fleeting second, that she was trying to save us, that the coldness was just stress, and this was her way of coming back to me. But then I looked at the billing details. The reservation was in my name, but the email address on the file was a burner account I'd never seen. I went to our joint bank portal and felt my blood turn to ice. There were thousands of dollars in charges, $2,000 at a luxury boutique, $1,500 at a high-end spa, and a whopping $5,500 at a local jeweler. I sat there in the dark of my office, staring at the screen. I hadn't made those charges. I hadn't been to that jeweler. I realized in that moment that she wasn't surprising me. She was framing me. The celebration happened last Tuesday. I walked through the front door and found my wife and her mother sitting on the white velvet sofa I paid for, sipping mimosas and laughing. The second they saw me, their faces shifted into masks of disgusted, moral superiority. My wife didn't even say hello. She just picked up a manila folder from the coffee table and tossed it at my feet. The hotel receipts and the jewelry invoices spilled out across the floor. "We know everything, David," she said, her voice dripping with fake pity. "The hotel, the anniversary jewelry for your little girlfriend. Did you really think I wouldn't find out? Did you think I was that stupid?" Her mother stood up, arms crossed, looking at me like I was a cockroach. "Honestly, David, after everything she's done for you, to use your joint money to fund a second life? It's not just betrayal, it's financial abuse. We've already spoken to a lawyer. We're moving for a fault-based divorce." I stood there, looking at the receipts on the floor. "I didn't buy these," I said, keeping my voice flat. "I've never even been to this hotel." "The reservation is in your name, David," my wife screamed, though her eyes looked weirdly excited. "The charges are from the joint account. My lawyer says that since you've been dissipating marital assets on an affair, the prenuptial agreement's no alimony clause is basically toilet paper. I'm taking the house. I'm taking the Lexus. And I'm taking the 60% of your 401k that I'm entitled to for the emotional trauma." They were so certain. Her mother actually pulled out a business card for a realtor. "We're thinking of listing the house for $1.2 million. With the market right now, it'll be gone in a week. You can move into a studio apartment. It'll be a nice change of pace for a degenerate like you." The entitlement was breathtaking. They had already spent the money in their heads. My wife told me I was forbidden from the master bedroom and that her legal advisor, who I later found out was her lover, told her she had every right to lock me out of my own suite. I didn't fight them. I didn't raise my voice. I just took my laptop and went to the guest room. They thought they had trapped me in a narrative, but they forgot that I track data for a living. That night, I went to work. I pulled the logs from our home's smart hub. I found that the hotel reservation was made at 2:14 p.m. on a Wednesday, a time when I was in a high-security board meeting with 60 witnesses. The IP address for the booking traced back to a specific Starbucks, the one right next to the law firm of her friend, a guy named the senior partner. Then I did a deep dive into her influencer business accounts. Since I had set up her LLC for her years ago, I still had the admin credentials. What I found made the hotel frame job look like child's play. Over the last 18 months, my wife had been systematic. She had been over-invoicing her clients and having them pay a secondary PayPal account that I didn't know about. From there, she was moving the money into a shell company account in her mother's name. She had managed to hide $140,000 of marital income. But it got dirtier. She knew the house was my separate property, so she had been trying to create equitable interest. She had been making the mortgage payments from her business account to make it look like she was contributing to the home's equity. However, when I traced the source of those mortgage payments, I found a series of authorized transfers from my personal, premarital investment account into her business account. She had forged my digital signature on 6 different transfer authorizations to steal my own money, move it through her business, and then pay my own mortgage with it to try and steal the title to the house. It was a brilliant, multi-layered fraud. If I hadn't been a forensic accountant, I would have been ruined. The first preliminary hearing was where the mask really started to slip. My wife showed up in a conservative black dress, dabbing her eyes with a tissue. Her lawyer, a guy who clearly didn't realize his client was a criminal, stood up and presented the proof of my betrayal. "Your Honor," he said, "Mr. My last name has been leading a double life. We have receipts for luxury hotels and jewelry bought with marital funds. We are asking for an immediate temporary order for alimony and exclusive possession of the home." The judge looked at me. "Mr. My last name, what do you have to say?" My lawyer stood up. She's the kind of attorney who doesn't talk much because she lets the evidence do the screaming. "Your Honor, we'd like to submit Evidence Exhibit A, a digital forensic audit of the hotel reservation and the jewelry purchase." I watched my wife's mother lean forward, a smug grin on her face. She thought she was about to watch me lose everything. "The hotel reservation," my lawyer continued, "was made using a device registered to the petitioner, the wife. The IP address used to book it is located directly adjacent to her lover's office. Furthermore, we have the jewelry receipts. We subpoenaed the store's security footage. Here it is." I played the video on the courtroom screens. It showed my wife, wearing a very recognizable designer coat, walking into the jewelry store. She didn't just buy a watch. She bought a man's watch, had it gift-wrapped, and then, this was the kicker, met a man in the parking lot. The camera caught them kissing as she handed him the box. That man was the very same legal advisor who had been helping her plan the divorce. The courtroom went dead silent. My wife's jaw literally dropped. She looked at her lawyer, who looked like he wanted to crawl under the table. "But that's not all, Your Honor," my lawyer said, her voice like a guillotine. "We have proof that the petitioner forged my client's signature to steal $140,000 from his private accounts. She then laundered that money through a shell company in her mother's name to pay the mortgage on a house she didn't own, in a calculated attempt to commit real estate fraud." The judge's face went from neutral to furious. "Is this true?" he asked, looking directly at my wife. He's lying. He's a numbers guy. He fabricated the logs," she shrieked. "The logs are verified by an independent third-party server, ma'am," the judge snapped. "Sit down." He didn't just deny her alimony. He issued an immediate freeze on her mother's bank accounts and ordered a court-appointed receiver to take control of her business. But the entitlement didn't die easily. 2 days later, while I was at my office, My security system alerted me to motion in the living room. I opened the app and saw my wife and her mother. They were in the house with cardboard boxes. They weren't just taking her clothes, they were stripping the place. They were taking my 75-inch TV, my high-end kitchen appliances, and even my grandfather's antique watch collection. He's going to pay for what he did in court, I heard her mother say on the crystal-clear audio. If he wants to play dirty with the money, we'll just take the assets. He can't prove we took these. Just say they were gifts. I hate him, Mom, my wife said, shoving my expensive espresso machine into a box. He thinks he's so smart. Let's see how smart he feels sitting in an empty house. I didn't call her. I called the police. I told them there was a burglary in progress and that I had a court order granting me exclusive possession of the home, which the judge had signed an hour after the hearing. I drove home and pulled into the driveway just as they were trying to shove the last of the boxes into her mother's SUV. 2 patrol cars pulled up right behind me. What's going on here? The officer asked. This is my daughter's house, the mother yelled, stepping in front of the car like she was a martyr. She's just taking her belongings. Actually, I said, stepping out of my car and handing the officer the court order. The judge granted me exclusive possession this morning. And those boxes contain over $40,000 worth of my premarital property and family heirlooms. I have the video of them taking it. My wife turned on me, her face contorted with rage. You're a monster. You're going to have your own wife arrested? You aren't my wife, I said. You're a person who tried to frame me for a crime you were committing. And your mother is an accomplice to grand larceny. The police didn't play around. Because the value was so high, it was a felony-level theft. They were both handcuffed in the driveway. The influencer was crying, her mascara running down her face in a way that definitely wasn't on brand, while her mother was screaming about rights and lawsuits. The next few months were a slow-motion car crash for them. The senior partner, Lover, was fired the moment the firm found out he was involved in a fraud scheme using their corporate codes. Without his income, he vanished. He didn't want a partner in crime who was actually going to be prosecuted. The IRS, tipped off by my forensic report, did a deep dive into the mother's shell company. They found years of unpaid taxes. She had to sell her own home just to pay the back taxes and avoid prison time. She went from sipping mimosas in my living room to living in a 1-bedroom rental on the bad side of town. My wife, facing bank fraud and grand larceny charges, had no leverage left. Her reputation was destroyed. Every brand she worked with dropped her. Her followers turned on her when the court documents became public record. We met one last time for the final settlement. She looked like a ghost. No makeup, no designer clothes, just the hollow look of someone who had gambled everything and lost. I'll sign the papers, David, she whispered. Just please, tell the DA to drop the felony charges. I can't go to jail. The DA doesn't care what I think, I said. But I'll agree to a no contest plea if you return the $140,000 in full today. I don't have it. My mother spent it on her own legal fees. Then I guess you'll be spending the next few years on probation, I said. And the house remains mine. The Lexus stays with me. You leave with exactly what you brought into this marriage, a suitcase and a bad attitude.
She signed.
The reflection part of this is short because I don't spend much time thinking about her anymore. People think the betrayal is the hard part, but for me, it was the realization that I was living with a stranger who saw me as a target. I learned that you can't audit a soul, but you can certainly audit the path a person takes when they think no one is watching. I'm back in my house now. It's quiet. I've replaced the furniture they tried to steal with pieces that don't have her fingerprints on them. I even went to that Grand Plaza resort for a weekend. I didn't bring a date. I just sat by the pool, enjoyed the peace, and realized that the best thing I ever did was believe the numbers instead of the person. If you want to see more entitled people get audited into oblivion, make sure to subscribe because I always keep the receipts and the metadata. Would you like me to elaborate on the specific forensic tricks I used to catch her, or perhaps start a new story about a different kind of betrayal?